Park Board meeting to order. In your packet were the minutes. Are there any changes, corrections, or omissions that anyone caught? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. You want to be first up, Tim?
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Tim Ekman here on behalf of Hudson Boosters and the softball committee. Thanks for having me back yet again, and thank goodness we have no more softball for the rest of the year. It's been a long year, and special shout out to Hudson PD for responding and rescue to a little incident Saturday. So we went out in style with nothing major, but somebody who had been imbibing for the whole day watching her daughter play softball from Forest Lake and got a little out of hand. So in any event, all's well that ends well, but just a nice tip of the cap to fire rescue and police for making sure everybody did eventually get home safe and sound, I think, is my understanding. So be that as it may, we're here. We had talked loosely with JJ and others about a shed there, building another structure there just to have more space for things that we've kind of moved in, and concessions have been going well, as you're aware, I think. But upon some reflection and being out there enough, I think perhaps, and I know Mike is new to the city here, but I want to make sure that our needs and goals are consistent with the city's. I know you've got the comprehensive plan or the 5-year plan as well. So my thought on further review is to maybe table this till at least the spring to kind of see where you're at and make sure we're not just putting another structure that we had at eyeballed and had kind of roughed in where it might go. But I know you've got a lot of other duties and responsibilities and projects you want to get on in the fall. So that's kind of my thought, is just to hold off on this until spring and perhaps get a little more definitive bids there. I want to make sure exactly I know how much before Boosters is going to cut the check for this as well. And it's a little, we've got a pretty good general idea what we want to have done, but I'd like to pin it down a little more. So with your blessing, that's kind of my thought here on behalf of the committee and Boosters.
I think that's really wise. I do. And I think we can, with Mike coming up to speed on everything, can sit down and go through, you know, is it going to meet everything that you need, and do we need to add to it?
Right.
Do we need to, you know, look at doing something, restrooms with it for now, that you can never have too many out there, even if we do build the other pavilion that we want to build. At least we get restrooms out there for now,
right,
kind of thing.
And I think, and we had an informal meeting before Dave O'Brien discharged. Dad was there, Mike was there, and a couple other city folks. So I think we're on board, but you know, I just think this makes sense to maybe table it than just cutting a check for 20, 30 grand and then having yet another garage there. Maybe isn't consistent with what you want to do on the north end of the quad there. You know, let's hold off and make sure it does make sense for everybody. We really have enough space. We appreciate the access we've had. I think it's gone well, and certainly if there's any concerns, I'm sure Deb and others will get back to me and they'll bring Mike up to speed on things as well. But we certainly appreciate the access we've had, and I think we've really been able to maximize use at Grandview all the way through this past weekend, and I think, you know, we plan on that continuing. The shed will be helpful, but is it a necessity at this particular point in time? I don't think so. I know you've got lots of other work you want to get to first, and we're happy to step back and, you know, reassess maybe in the spring. So
wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody had any other questions on that or comments. Yes, sir.
What would you mainly be using the shed for?
Well, the shed right now, you know, JJ and the rest of you have been good soldiers, so to speak, but we've had all our stuff plugged in on the garage side, and, you know, we'll leave it at that. Perhaps not exactly up to code with everything that's been there. So more space. We bought those fences to host events, storing that to really get all the extra chalk, some of the city materials we could store out there, and also the tractor that we groom the fields with. Right now, the tractor we've been parking at Dave O'Brien's house over in the Glen. Then one of us physically has to drive it 20 minutes up there. We leave it there for the weekend and then drive it back. Now that he's deployed, it'd be nice to have it there to speed things up, and then we could share that with Field 5 and with baseball as well to, again, keep things on the up and up. I think we hosted a ton of events, both baseball, softball this year more than ever, and I think we've really gotten the name out there in Hudson through quality umpires, quality fields, quality events. We're getting a lot more we're hosting more than we ever had through Minnesota softball, national, et cetera, which is bringing in, even this past weekend, this is an average tournament for one day. You got 16 teams of 12 to 13 girls apiece that were there from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. and they weren't sticking around to eat lunch outside in 42-degree the weather Saturday. They were inside at all the restaurants and bars around. Well, hopefully not the bars. Let's go with restaurants and Target and Starbucks. But it's been, we want to make sure, and with the welcome signs and everything, it's been a good fit. And frankly, Grandview it's a nice facility. I think over the years, as you're aware, it's maybe not underutilized, but we're in a transition from adult softball, and it's been nice for us to have access for the girls and not try to cobble together something at Burton, which I was doing 2 years. And I think the garage would help, but again, aesthetically, to make sure it meets with what your plan is as well. So, any other questions? Otherwise,
my only question would be if we table it till the spring and come up with a different plan, would we have time from like deciding to having it built by the time like softball or whatnot would start next summer? In the spring,
we've gotten by, if I gotta or somebody else drive the tractor over from Dave's house, I know it's welcome underneath his deck for another winter, even though he's off in the Middle East. So if we have to do that, that's fine.
Okay.
It would be nicer and more consistent and more efficient if it were right at the quad, but I'm not in that big of a hurry, to be perfectly honest. So we can kind of do our due diligence, make sure this meets with your plan, and get it to fit in perfectly, so we're not, seeing it second guessing it, 6 months later, like, oh God, there's another white elephant we built. So,
right.
So I'll be back and I'll stay in touch with everybody. But I appreciate the time here this evening, and thanks again on behalf of the boosters and softball for the access. It's greatly appreciated, and we've enjoyed our time at Grandview and look forward to the future. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I don't want to open up a can of worms, but could, in a future agenda item, could we review the liquor license out there? I have some concerns with open containers, people watching youth sports all day with open containers out there. I don't know what the limitations are with the adult softball, I understand, but with the rest of it, I'm not sure what that means.
No, good point. I couldn't give you a clear answer.
I can go back or just comment on Mr.
Yeah, Tim.
Comment. I think when we looked, and Tim Hackman again, thanks for having me back, but my day job, I work up at the Government Center, some as you know, so I have a little bit of legal knowledge here. Very little as far as some people are concerned. But in terms of liquor license, my understanding or reading of that is it's granted to 1400 Carmichael Road. So the entire premises there is part of the problem that we ran into during discussions last year. So if you're redefine the definition of premises to a specific location on Grandview, that might help, as opposed to simply eliminating it altogether. Because as far as I could tell, and I'm not Ms. Munkitrick, my opinion doesn't matter like hers does for your purposes, but arguably you could drink anywhere at 1400 Grandview, Castle Park included, which I don't think is what anybody wants. No. So that I think would be one legal reading of that. So at least to Mr. O'Keefe's point, to limit alcohol sales or however you want to do that, that might be helpful. I don't want to certainly throw adult softball under the bus because we hope to be on the girls' side, at least the feeder system for girls to be playing adult softball in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So we don't want that to go away. And I certainly worked well with Derek and adult softball in terms of Grandview this past season, so I'd like to continue that perfectly happy. But in terms of alcohol access, that's obviously your call, but that would be one thing. And this past weekend, it just highlighted, I won't bore you with details, but it's just, your typical youth parent is drinking all day, spicing the coffee when it's 40 degrees out with, a little Jameson, and by 6 o'clock at night, we're reaming out the umpire. Next thing you know, we got the police and fire call to defuse the situation, make sure she was okay. And that happens at, hockey, everywhere else. It's unfortunate. So even limiting the liquor license here wouldn't have done anything because people are drinking out of the back of their car or whatever. So that would have nothing to do with on sale here by adult softball. But liability-wise and liquor-wise, I think Mr. O'Keefe's point is probably a good one. But
it is. Real good one.
So, but other than that, I don't have any feedback. On behalf of boosters, I think we made this clear when we came here. We have no interest in ever dispensing any alcohol at any event at Grandview, period. So that's a separate discussion for you entirely. So,
Perfect.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So is Mike's question, to dovetail on that, is it limited to Grandview, or is that something we should be looking at in all the parks?
Each park's different.
Each park is different.
Okay,
For example, Burkmouse, you can't have anything. You can't,
Band shell.
Van Shell,
Shell you
but that's
can.
specific events.
Right.
South of the Dike Road, you can have beer or wine if you're an adult.
Okay.
But that
And
should
at the
be,
pavilions, you can have,
Right.
you know, as long
Mhm.
as
Exactly.
in the pavilions. But
So would we want to look at the
Let's
policy for the entire park system on that? As long as we're going to look
Let's
at
look at
I
them
think
all.
so. I think we should.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I think that's,
even if it's for us to just, reconfirm what we already have, we don't have to make changes, just to get us
Yeah.
all on the same
Think
page
so.
again.
Good review.
I think it'd be real good to review it. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're clear on it, and if we want to make changes, we can get them to Catherine before the busy time of the park seasons come up,
Sure.
next spring.
thank you.
Michael, you want to take the one on the steps for
Yeah.
Third Street Hill?
Yeah, so as many of you are aware, we have just up the street here, there's a set of steps that lead up into Prospect Park, and they're deemed to be unpassable. So they've been blocked off for, I don't know how long, a year, 2 years.
Year and a half.
There was money set aside in the CIP to replace those stairs. When Tom went out for engineering fees and just construction of a new kind of stair system to get up to the top, the original budget was for $30,000, and the quote came back for about $105 or something like that. So the project was basically just pushed to the side with limited funds available. But we still have the stairs up there, and ultimately they need to come out. So I guess what I'm looking for tonight from the board is just maybe some background, maybe some discussion, just a recommendation to remove the stairs right now, put down some erosion control, grow the bank, and then in the future, let's look at an alternate route that maybe be more feasible and more cost effective to get up to the top of Prospect Park. Whether we can get, some Eagle Scouts involved with an Eagle Scout project, creating a native trail up to the top of the bluff or something like that. But I guess, my recommendation would be, there's so many other needs in the community for $100,000 than a primitive trail to the top of Prospect. So,
Did you get the email I sent you on those stairs?
I did, yeah. And Pat had sent me an email on like some fire escape stairs or something like that. We would have to get them an engineer to review the specs to make sure that because if we install them, we're ultimately liable for them, and we have to have them engineered. So I'm a little leery on installing.
Because they would work
something like that.
$2,700 to $3,500, depending on, and
Yeah.
they were long enough to be able to fit. They hold up to 1,000 pounds. You see them on the sides of every building in the Twin Cities has external fire escapes. They're fire escape ladders, made out of steel, and they're relatively bulletproof. Now, to design a pad,
Yeah,
that they could for us real easily.
sure.
I bet we could get them the whole thing done for less than the engineering cost to have our engineers do it. The other thing I thought of is if it worked there, they might work as the same stairs to try on the dike.
Oh, for the
Because
mooring
it'd be the
access.
same thing, even though the stair set, you've got your angle set, well, how and where we put our platforms that they meet up to is up to us to catch that angle, right?
How many steps are there?
What about 30
I
steps?
think it's 30 or 33.
Somewhere there, 30 to 35, somewhere in that range. So it's not a very,
For 100?
oh,
$5,000.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
yeah.
You can do it a lot more effectively than that. I mean, with these other metal stairs, I mean, is the city liable if somebody
Right now, sure.
hits their toe on a step and falls down a metal
Well, they're blocked off,
staircase?
so.
Might not be great.
The ones that are currently there, they're blocked off.
They're
so,
blocked off for
Well,
that
but I mean,
reason.
if we were to,
And when Tom
Oh, to buy the new one?
went out talked to some of the welding shops around the area. They looked at them and said, yeah, we could fix them, wouldn't be hard, but we don't want the liability for being the ones to fix them. Because we're that kind of a world today.
Another way, that's,
Well, you know, and I know,
instead of
Pat,
steps are.
sorry to interrupt, but we've discussed this, and Mike, I don't know if you've been up there, but there's almost like there's a plateau. It may have been the old original road bed.
Sure.
And that heads up the hill.
Okay.
And we could, it's not as steep if we potentially had an access point there.
Yeah.
It's
And
closer to the water department's project.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, access would be
Depends there.
good. The only concern is the sidewalk ends at the steps. However, there's sidewalk on the other side. So granted, we might have some pedestrian, we'd have to upgrade, the crosswalk there
Yeah.
with some signage, but,
Yeah.
and that's certainly, because again, this goes back, I don't know, Pat, 7, 8 years ago when we probably first put those trails in. There's a lot of park up there, and there's more room for more trails, and that would work. And I know that's, 100,000 for steps is ridiculous, and like Pat said, no one wants to touch it because of the liability.
Yeah.
But yet, I think this is something that we certainly need to examine a better alternative route, and hey, if we can do it for 30, let's think about it, and maybe we can do it for less.
And if we
which would
could
be
use
better.
the same stair system on the dike, where we've talked for years about wanting to put in steps, but it always turned into huge costs to have the stairs designed and engineered, and then, if we could take a prefabricated product like that and repurpose it,
Okay.
call the fire escape. Right?
And Pat, I'm not really familiar with, the step itself that you're referring to, but again, I mean, the pitch up there, it wouldn't be nearly
Oh, it'd be
as,
really easy up.
in
even do
fact, you could even do a switchback natural trail potentially from up
Quite
there.
easily.
The problem you have is if you access it by where I think is it the water department?
Utilities.
Utility, they've got like, timbers.
Okay.
And I mean, but still, what's our alternative? 100,000, 30,000?
Yeah.
Do a trail and maybe do it for 5 or 10.
And that might be a combined Eagle project
Sure.
kind of thing, or service project
Yeah.
of various groups.
Okay.
You'll experience that coming to us, wanting to do projects and the like, but up there would be, on that end, would be quite simple.
But just kind of circling back, I think, Mike, you're looking for a recommendation, remove the steps. Yes, I think we need to do that. Right now, we're in trouble potentially if someone does even go through the barricade and falls down. We're looking at a lawsuit. So
how about a motion to remove the
that's-
existing stairs?
that's what I will do. I will make a motion to remove the existing stairs and do some type of landscaping so it doesn't wash out.
Any further discussion with it?
What's the funding source you've got funds to remove those?
Looking at them, I don't want to hang my staff out there, but I think we could do it in-house.
Yeah.
Whether we take a torch and cut them and scrap it or something, but just to get them off it should be minimal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Yeah, I think that's a good one to get those out of there and
Yeah.
do it.
We won't put any stairs down to the dike on the agenda. We want you to stay around for a while.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We are being taped.
Mike, you want to take the
Yeah.
next one and start out with that on our?
Yeah, so the next item on the agenda is discussion on the capital improvement plan. In your packet, what I had asked you to do, it's not a big deal if you didn't, but basically I just want discussion on, the CIP project plan for 2019 and 2020, because we're drafting the CIP plan for the bonding cycle for the next couple of years. And I want to get a general sense from the board which projects in 2019, which projects in 2020 are higher priorities. Okay, because right now, if you add all the 2019 projects up that are on the CIP, it comes up to $720,000. Likewise, for 2020, it's $805,000. Realistically, that's not feasible for us to do and handle financially. So talking to the finance director, she's recommending we get down into that $200,000 to $300,000 range, and then we can supplement with the park dedication funds that we have on hand as well to support some of these projects. So I'm just looking for general discussion. I don't know if you want to go through each one of these. In Richmond, I would have the park board members kind of come prepared. They would have them ranked, and then I would just put the numbers together and kind of reverse, grading system. But, no need to do that tonight. So I think, let's just kind of have a discussion and kind of ultimately come to a consensus as a board tonight, at least for 2019 and 2020. So that I can put it in the CIP, and then I'll have to present this to the City Council and Finance Committee the week of the 22nd for their approval to move forward with some of these projects. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know how you would like to proceed with the discussion on this. I'm sure previous conversations you've had in the past will kind of lend itself to discussion.
We can blow that 200,000 out of the water real easily,
right,
with just the restrooms at Grandview, which we need, I don't mean to be overstepping my bounds, but I think to me that's probably one of the, if not the number one, within the top 3 projects on that entire list, especially with pickleball going out there and the number of people that's going to be bringing along with it. We're listening to the boosters talk about the activities that it's picking up more and more. $250,000 is a lot of money, but in today's world, it's not a lot of building.
Right.
And I would like to, for your benefit, Mike, when we did the building out at White Camp, it was designed with the intent that we could replicate it in other places if we ever went to do a building like that. And the open air portion was designed such that we could put removable walls in there.
Okay.
In the wintertime, heat it and make it a warming house. And when they graded and set the street that dead ends at the dog park out there, if you look at it, it's set up to be an ice skating rink. Put a white plastic cover over it, and now you only got to build a couple inches of ice instead of Burton Field where you got to build 1.5 feet to get it to be level again.
Okay.
So I would like to see me speaking on that building. If that was designed properly the way we did it, we could do it in hunks and add on the overhead, the covered portion or that kind of thing, remodel it, so to speak, in future. But
do you recall how much the one at White Camp ended up costing?
It was right around $275.
About $275.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in today's world, that's probably at least 30 to 40% more.
Yeah.
Well, that would partially be funded through.
But all the engineering's been done.
Have.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But part of it, I think we should look at as we're going through, is what items are things that we want to that should go into bonding and that kind of sourcing, or what is ideal for coming out of the impact fees that are being generated in those parts of town that will
right
can go to those as a source of funds.
Sure. Yep.
Yes.
We talked about neighborhood park and community park and the definitions on those. And did we get that pinned down for Grandview? How that's and how those impact fees might be allocated for that park?
I'm negligent in that Tom and I talked about it, and then with him leaving and everything else, it has fallen through the cracks, and my steel trap of a mind locked it in there, and I can't get in to find out the memory. So,
Sure.
yeah, Mike and I will verify that and check with the city attorney on it, because we need clarity.
Yeah.
Pat, I'll just make a comment.
Yeah.
I totally agree with what you just said. I looked at this list, and that was the one that jumped out at me too. I mean, that's besides lakefront, that and White Camp, and we know what's going on at White Camp from a positive standpoint. That's where we are getting the most traffic, the most utilization. That's where our money needs to be spent. And obviously, maybe Deb, you could comment how much usage we do have or how much demand we have on the pavilion up at White Camp, because people I talk to that use it love it. And now the other thing is, hey, maybe we do have some funding for this, and maybe if we get an update on that, that would certainly be appreciated too.
Yeah.
But anything else on here is
The other one that I would put up there as a one category project. We've got the sailing club now. All those kids and all those moms and all those families going down, and we've improved the
Restroom.
the magnet, if you will, by having the playground equipment down there. And
yeah.
Those bathrooms
Yep.
really need to be improved.
You bet.
And it's a poke in the eye to us as a city.
Yeah.
If that's your first experience, you came over to the park and boy, it's a beautiful park and everything, and you feel like you want to go wash up after you went in the bathroom.
That was my number one as well, Pat, on that.
Yeah, bathrooms are on there.
A lot of the other stuff you can live without for a
Right.
year.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a plug, though, for Burton, for the upgrade on the ball fields, and not just the ball field, just bringing it up to grade,
Yeah.
so we can have some ice skating rinks down there. Because the way the grade is now, we can have this much ice on one end and that much ice on the other. And we just couldn't keep rinks for the last couple of years.
No.
Yeah.
Ever.
But Mike, maybe Burton isn't the answer for ice skating.
Maybe.
Just kind of feeding off what Pat's saying. Potentially, maybe we need to look at Grandview.
Yeah.
It seems like we have this conversation every year about Burton, and it's
Yeah, I've seen a plan where it kind of reconfigures the park. And,
Oh, there's
yeah.
been numerous
Yeah.
ones. Yep. And, it's the old city baseball field. So it's, got that grade to it. The only ones who really use it today as a baseball field are St. Pat's and Trinity, and then T-ball and the like. So my point is they could play on a level field and not know the difference. It's
thing
not
is-
going to affect their game.
The thing is with Burton is, there was just a fair amount of funds that were stuck into the warming house to bring
Right.
that up to speed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd hate to see that go by the wayside as well.
Good point.
And it's a neighborhood
Yeah.
park.
And a lot of, I assume it's very busy on a nice winter day. A lot of families go there to ice skate. It's the only outdoor public rink in the city, so.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It's a nice
Like I said,
location.
that's a board decision what they want to do.
It's a nice location for that rink, too. I think it's more right in the residential area, so to speak.
We should just get a number from Zappa of what it would be to level it.
Well, for the purpose of tonight's discussion, if you tackle, if there's no other ones that are jumping off the page on the first one besides Burton, the restrooms at Grandview, and the upgrades at Buckeye, could you take the Burton upgrades, combine it with the hockey board upgrades down in 2020 and just kind of do a
Yeah.
Burton Park repurpose in 2020?
Yeah,
Yes?
There you go.
that would work.
Yep.
Okay. So maybe we can do that.
So, you guys, they wanted us down to 200,000. Was that it?
Yeah.
And we'll come back at 300. That's where we're headed.
Yeah.
350 to 4.
Yep.
By the time, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be flippant, but if it
No, I
costs
know.
250 to build the building
Right,
before,
right.
Yeah.
that's going to put us over 3 today.
It's some,
And
But
then-
I could talk 300. I can't speak 720.
No, we get that.
You
I think that's a great idea, Mike. I think we go with those two projects and push the ball, the grading into 2020, and we're good to go. All they can do is say no, but those are really our priorities with where our vision is.
And also, when I look at in my mind, at the lake, other than the restrooms, at anything to do with lakefront, the responsibility for funding for that I see being with the engineering firm that did our project.
Yeah.
Because they sold us, all of us on the committee, that their value was in their ability to come up with funding in excess of what it cost them to hire them to do the plan.
Sure. Yep.
So,
Yeah, and I think there'd be, different sources of funding, grants, maybe some TID money to do some of those upgrades, because those are going to be, you're talking millions of dollars for those upgrades
Yeah.
from the plan that they gave us. So it's nothing that we're going to be able to fund through the capital.
Well, do you need a motion?
Yeah.
please.
Let's make a motion to prioritize the pavilion at Grandview and the upgrades of the bathrooms at Lakefront or Buckeye. And our estimate is 300,000, which is probably conservative.
I would second.
Any further discussion? My thinking is the bathrooms down at Picnic Point
Right.
won't be as expensive, because we're not building a building. We're not having to do that. It's more cosmetic and equipment
Yeah.
than structural. So, it may scratch at that 300 number, but
Yeah.
we're trying to be frugal in where we spend the dollars too, but boy, those two areas make the greatest impact to the people who use them, which is us.
Yep. I agree.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. And then, can you make a motion for the 2020?
What, I was going to ask first, so the 2020, just clarification on the boat launch docks, is that different or is that the same? As some people call it the boardwalk, but
No,
the lakefront park side, is that different than that?
no, this is the docks at the boat launch,
Oh,
where people launch and tie up and put in and take out.
okay.
There.
So this isn't, we want to get you from the river down to downtown?
No,
No, that'd be different. Yep.
no,
And that would that come out of a different, is that more like a common council thing, or does that?
well, that was part of the plan put forth by the
SCH.
SCH
Right.
in their plan for us, but no suggestion yet as to where the funding would come from for doing it,
Okay.
such a thing. And the kind of feeling, I think, has been that it goes in line with a bunch of other stuff ahead of it in terms of dollars to the city.
Yeah. That's where I was
Yeah.
talking about, those alternative sources of funding, community
Yeah.
subsidies with tourism dollars, that type of thing. Because that's kind of the main purpose of those transient docks, is to have people come off the river, come up to the
Right.
community kind of thing. So using those dollars appropriated to that project would make more sense. And I think that's
from
been.
On this same kind of half subject, Mike and I have had the discussion, and Mike Johnson and I to a little bit of an extent. I think that Hudson's at the size where a grant writer on city staff should be able to earn their own keep with projects and funding that's out there to be taken advantage of and done. But you don't have the time or the
I
expertise,
sprinkle
no
them in
offense,
here and there.
but to do
Yeah.
all of that, I
Yep.
mean, I don't know how other communities our size do that. Do you have any experience there?
Yeah, so, some communities will have management analysts where they'll help with, grant writing, they'll help with putting agendas together, PowerPoints together, managing budgets, or putting budgets together. That's in my previous place of employment, that was kind of a responsibility or a job.
Richmond has that kind of person on staff?
Yep.
I mean, when I think of all the stuff that the city has added, piled on over the last years as we've grown, right?
Yeah.
And as our culture in the community has changed from the citizenry being the ones who run all the organizations and volunteer to help run, it's getting to be so expensive and big today that we almost need a grant writer to help apply for some of the funds that are out there to be able to do things that we're just not aware of. And we've done such a good job as a city management, I think, over the years of doing more with less, that I don't think, my perspective, at least at looking at parks and other things, we aren't, you don't see people standing around leaning on shovels and hanging out and not working. Everybody's towing their share. And it appears that way internally in the city here. But to have somebody who's looking for dollars,
Is there?
I think it's a recommendation that I would like to see the park board put on a future agenda to make that recommendation to the city that they look at hiring someone.
Are there like grant writing consultants who are knowledgeable in this area?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure,
There are. Okay.
there have to be. Yes.
Yeah.
Because Pat, I mean, again, this is policy. I mean, I think this is something the city council and the mayor need to really decide. We can put a recommendation, but I don't know. I don't know how that, I would think the political environment on whether grants are going to be there from year to year. Man alive, you get a person in your full-time job and something changes in Madison. It's like, well, boy, thank you. We enjoyed your service, but you're done. But again,
But if they have to hunt to eat, it's going to have to be that kind of thing. Exactly.
I think that's where a consultant
Yeah.
would come in. So,
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was wondering how other communities our size.
Mike, you're shaking your head. Is this?
Yeah, there are
something-
other, a lot of the engineering firms have people on staff that help write grants. That's how, like SCH says they were able to find monies,
Okay.
it's because they
Okay.
have grant writers on staff. So that would be a possible option, is consulting with various engineering planning firms to help us write and find grants to help us with some of these projects, especially with like lakefront and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
There's a lot of needs within the city. There's, a GIS person. We don't have a GIS person on staff. We consult and contract a lot of our GIS work out. We're paying a lot of money for that. Probably could offset a full-time employee. So, there's a lot of needs within the city.
Yeah, I think we're at a technological point within the city
Sure.
that
So what
all the flood dollars.
What are you looking for? Just a recommendation to city council that we feel there's a void in our ability to utilize grants because there is not someone on city staff, or we have not utilized a consultant to help us with that. Is that kind of what?
That's what I'm thinking. It would be something that would, since we don't have a parks director anymore, you guys don't know that, but
That's
when
what
Dan
he is.
Regland was our parks director,
Right.
that was one of the things he did.
Sure.
But when that position went away, so did the function of doing that, because it went to an already overloaded Public Works.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that there's possibly grants on a federal level or state level out there that Public Works could take advantage of for doing things. I think it would be across the board as in the community, but we notice it in parks. that
Yeah.
What is the percentage of grant money does the park board usually see per year on different projects? I mean,
Little.
little?
Well, there's
We
some.
get Dingle Johnson monies now and then for the boat launch. Those are dollars that come from every fishing license and fishing lure that get sold in Wisconsin.
There's the recreation and trails that's
Yep.
part of Vine Street, and then the Walnut Street Bridge was funded through that partially. I mean, there's the Knoll stewardship we've used over the years.
Yeah,
Spark
LRI.
grants, there's a lot of local
Goats.
smaller ones.
When when,
Part of the goats was
That was
grant.
about when we repurchase Prospect, and we get some grant money for that?
Well, and correct
There's
me,
my point.
Yeah.
There's trail, but.
correct me if I'm wrong, but
Specific.
sorry, didn't we just get grant money for those, for Lake Malibu, those,
Sure.
the cement docks, right?
Yeah.
We're applying.
Well, applying.
We're applying for it. So,
We're applying for.
so some of that's happening already as well.
That's happening.
That's part of my
Oh, it's always
responsibilities too.
Yeah,
But you're just saying you want it on a larger scale. Is that right?
yeah. The only reason we know, the only reason that we're getting it for that project is because those worker bees
Brought it to our attention.
brought it to,
Right.
doing the work, brought it to our attention and
Yeah.
said, here's a possible source of funding to do it. And Buck is, Malik, who brought the project to us, is that way, you know. And their organization is for doing that kind of thing. But I just think if we can make that known higher up, that we notice it as a handicap to
Right.
the city being able to really function the best without putting the burden of doing all that on the taxpayers.
Well, it's
Yes,
really got to
we-
be part of the process of getting the money
Yeah.
to get some of these projects going. I mean, you have to check and see if there's grant money out there, and then figure out where you're at and what you have to do to get it, and those types of things, I would think. I
Yeah.
mean,
Very cumbersome, believe me.
It's a-
Because that you
and
can
if you
go
don't know
through
the
it
process,
often,
then-
Yeah, you got to be a grant writer, somebody who has
Way too much
knowledge
work.
and expertise in being able to do it, plus other skill sets that are useful to other departments.
A lot of the bigger grants nowadays require you to do feasibility studies, engineering, pre-engineering work to have the projects be shovel ready so that when you do apply for it, you have a better chance of getting it. So there's a lot of upfront costs associated with these grants, especially these bigger ones like the Knoll Stewardship Grants, you know, for trails and that kind of thing, where it's not just let's submit a letter and we're going to get $500,000. No, there's a lot of grants nowadays are very competitive, and they're very, you know, precise as far as what they want and how they track expenditures and all that jazz. So it's as Debbie can attest, you know, just with the urban forestry grant, it's a smaller grant that we receive, you know, $25,000 maximum, but I mean it takes up a lot of time, a lot of staff time to keep track of expenses, receipting, volunteer hours, full-time hours, calculating the usage of all of the equipment, that kind of thing. So it kind of just goes to the point that Pat was saying is, you know, maybe, and, you know, as part of my responsibilities coming to the city too is to be a grant writer and to look into grants and apply for a variety of projects. So it's just, you know, being new to the city, I got to get a kind of a wrap on, you know, what projects are priorities where I'm not going to apply for a grant if the city doesn't need the money, you know, and waste my time and waste other people's time. So it'll come. And then I think in the meantime, you know, we can look at maybe consulting services or something like that to help out along the way.
Well, also, as I look at it, we're authorizing Mike to spend part of his 40 hours a week, part of his time, to do that stuff. And he's already got a full plate of stuff to do. And I don't mean that as an offense to you or your abilities, but, you know, what's out there for, we're on the St. Croix, which is part of the Mississippi, and what flood dollars are going to be out there for ready projects coming up this spring that our riprap or something like that would qualify for if you only had time to look out there and know that it was there.
Well, Pat, I just have a request of Mike. I mean, Mike, these are all projects we've identified. I guess I'd like your opinion, maybe not tonight, but hey, what potential, all right, trail improvements. Okay, we got to get more specific, but is there grant money for that? There might be. Upgrading the ball fields, I don't know. LED lighting, maybe. XL Energy might have something. Riprap, we were just talking about that. I mean, there's just out of our list here of 15 or so, there's probably 2/3 of them. Maybe we could get some money, and then we're not sitting here with this request of 300,000 when our original goal was 720.
Yeah.
So is that reasonable, or?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
No problem. Fair enough.
Good. I'm really happy to have you on board with with everything that you've got going on in Public Works besides here with Parks. But I think.
Well, and here, Pat, I like your idea. I'm not trying to poo-poo it by any means, but Mike, I guess that's something too. We'd like a little input on your end. It's like maybe it's 6 months. I say, Cripes, I just don't have enough time. We really need to. You guys need to move this up to City Council, the mayor, and have them kind of take a look at it.
Yeah.
Because yes, we have such beautiful parks, and like you said, Pat, it seems like we're always trying to do stuff on the cheap. And it's always scratching to try to do stuff. And I mean, we've been here a long time, you and I, doing this. And it's, man alive. I mean, you go to other communities and you see what they're doing. It's like, okay, what are we missing? We're not, we're not a destitute community that we should be able to get these things done.
Yep.
And 6 months from now, for example, you'll be able to look at your past time allotment and say, okay, it costs the city $30,000 in my time in the last 6 months to do this. We could have had some, but I spent it, or somebody new could have found, could have done, and I think you can build that kind of a case, and if we can help you do that, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe this is something we can put on a future agenda item and come back to maybe?
Yeah.
And have
we
a little
can't
more
take
thinking
any
about
action
it,
on
or-
it because it wasn't on our agenda.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think
Yep.
it's not published, so it's, yeah.
Or even like an intern or something like that. I mean, that might be a possibility.
Good
I mean,
idea.
Whatever we can.
Yeah. That's
Hobbyist? I don't know.
a good idea.
Yeah. Well, there's not too many people who are exploitable anymore, but students is one of them, right?
Well, hey. I mean, yeah, what a
Everybody needs a good lobbyist.
Okay, can we get back to making a motion for the 2020 capital improvements?
we did, and we approved.
Okay.
We did.
So we want it for 20.
19.
Oh, 20.
What do you want for the motion?
Oh, we want to.
Well, I'm wondering if, and I don't know if you need the 2020 right now, I'm wondering if we wait to see what actually happens with 2019 to figure out, I mean, you could kind of project out a little bit, but I'm wondering, like, for instance, if we don't have the money to do the new bathroom upgrade at Grandview, is that something we would then do in 2020? So I don't know if we want to.
It's a 2-year cycle, so
Oh, it is.
I would recommend approving something for 2020.
For both.
they can
Okay.
roll it over, flip it back, and they can
Yep.
and have other funding sources possibly that are going to maybe reduce that 300,000 to 200,000.
Right.
I also think that land acquisition from XL on that north end of the trail, I know that's pricey, but that would be a great
And where'd that number come from?
long-range thing, I
That
think.
was in the CIP plan from 2017.
I don't know where that number came from.
I don't think
We
there's
had
any
put it on-
validity to that number.
I'm not sure.
Honestly, don't, because we haven't.
I don't even know, is it even for sale?
Pat?
Yeah, it's legal on their end.
Okay.
No idea where that.
It's, as far as I know, from,
Maybe we can get.
Mike Johnson would know
I
specifically,
think we
but
want XL to donate it to the parks.
that's,
Well,
yeah.
Number should be 0.
Well,
It really should.
last I understood was that their legal department was saying they don't want to deed it over to the city
Yes.
because of hangups with what's possible contaminants underneath
Sure.
there from the railroad and
Makes
from
sense.
Excel, but that we were going to get it with a 100-year lease with the 200-year option or something like that for $1 to be able to do it.
Sure.
And so our only expense would be having Catherine, our city attorney, look over the documents. And last I heard from Brian Elliott was that it's at legal on their side.
Okay. Okay.
How long ago was that, Pat? Roughly?
2 weeks ago at Rotary.
Oh, super. Okay.
I asked
They
him,
need like
where are we at with it? And he said it's still at legal.
16 or something
Good.
per board.
So that number is probably not.
I don't think
that's-
that-
it's not-
Accurate?
It's not
Yep.
valid. So
Mm-mm.
Okay. So we'll change that.
Yeah.
We'll just put
Yeah.
it at 0 for now.
So for purposes, if you're looking for a motion, I would move that we would put Burton Park as a priority for 2020, which could include upgrading ball fields, landscaping, and the LED lighting upgrades. Some kind of a package deal for Burton.
Okay.
Of which we could obviously adjust at a future date or something. So.
Mhm.
Can you include
Great docs.
that the miscellaneous items be passed in the CIP as well, the tables, grills, and garbage cans that we purchase every year?
Yes.
I was thinking that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you bet.
Yep.
Okay, so we got Burton Park.
Second.
Any further discussion? I don't see anything else on there that we need that in. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Per year. Per year.
What's that?
300,000 total for 1920, or was it per year?
No, it's fine. What they did was
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
I couldn't
Do you need anything else
Nope. We're
No.
good.
on that for it? It's specifically vague enough that,
We're sitting good.
good. Any item, oh, you want to give us our park updates?
Yeah, just a couple updates for the park board tonight. Staff is out with a little extra time here in the fall. A couple of our parks crew members are reshingling the dugouts up at Grandview Park. So they started earlier this week and look to get done here hopefully by the end of the week, if not next week. So apparently it was much needed and had a little extra time, so some money appropriated to that, so they're up there doing that. Little dog park improvements. The Dog Park Association, the bids came back, and they were a little higher than what they first initially donated to the city. The bid came back at 13,000, something like that, and they had donated 10. So they're in the process of raising additional funds to help fund that, and they're hopeful that they can get it done here within the next couple weeks as well. In fact, I think they have something out on their Facebook page soliciting for donations, that type of thing. So as soon as
Is
they
that
get
for water? What was it for?
For the small dog.
for the small
Yeah,
dog
small
park,
dog,
for the
okay.
fencing,
Small dog park.
yeah. So as soon as they get, the remaining money to us, it's a full go with that project. So I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, and talking to, is it Ann? She's very optimistic that they'll have those funds here shortly, that we can get that project installed here this fall.
Okay.
So that's the update on that. And then, like I said at the last meeting, a couple of our Parks Department members are out winterizing, starting to winterize restrooms and blow out irrigation lines. So they'll be doing that over the course of the next couple of weeks with it being so cold so soon. So for those people out there, we'll probably post on our website, when restrooms are closed, so they're aware if they're out and about to not use them or to look elsewhere. So that's pretty much it.
Can we go back to that original request, even though we tabled it about, with the storage facility? I guess the only thing I'm concerned is aesthetics, if it's going to be consistent with what we're trying to do with the parks, Pat. And, I mean, the estimate, I think, was like $10,000, or give or take. It just seems like, you know, I don't want to have an eyesore up there. I don't think it will be, but again,
Does it need to be more than a shed?
yes,
What it's-
yes,
That's what I'm getting at.
yes. Okay,
And what our conversation is
okay,
with them on it is,
perfect.
does it need
Okay.
to be more than,
Right.
I think it needs to be more than just a shed.
Okay,
And I think Tim is
okay.
thinking it may as also.
And I guess what I would like to do over the winter months too with the board is to look back at the park plan, updating it, revising it, adding the original master plans from each park into the park plan. So it'd be a good chance for myself to get kind of caught up on what each park needs. Maybe eliminate some things that are in the park plan that we don't need anymore, just so we get a more concrete document and that we can work off of. So,
Great.
and that would be a good time to look at Grandview, you know, to get an overall concept. So.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion. Cap? Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.